A very warm welcome to you all for joining us today. My name is David Hewen, and on behalf of the team at Garrett Publishing, we're so grateful for you and that you've chosen to spend some time with us and our fantastic speakers this evening. We have people from all around Australia and indeed some around the globe. We at Garrett choose to begin all our webinars and events by acknowledging the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the first peoples of Australia and acknowledge their ongoing connection to the land. I join you from the lands of the Wurundjeri people here in Naarm, now known as Melbourne, Australia. I pay my respects to both past and present leaders, recognising their wisdom of the land and their cultural knowledge. We at Garrett Publishing strive to do our best to actively work alongside Indigenous people for reconciliation and justice, addressing historical injustices and promoting a more equitable future. In 2023, Pope Francis was unable to attend COP28 meeting on climate change, but he has given us a true gift, one of the lasting gifts, in Laudate Deum, a reminder to act for climate justice in our world. Before we get started in earnest, there's a few administrative matters. I'll switch on the chat function in a moment. In that function, please note that only I and our speakers can see your inputs and your questions. Those seeking accreditation, if you're a teacher from Victoria, we would ask that you place in the chat function your name and your VIT number. For other teachers around the country seeking accreditation, please just put the email that you used to register for the session, ideally, and the name of your school. Over the next week or two, we will recognise and record the professional development hours. The session tonight is being recorded, and we invite you all to place any questions in the chat function that's available to you. We'll do our best to answer your questions and respond to your comments throughout tonight's session. Can't guarantee we'll get to all of them, but we'll do our best. We aim to finish at 8 a.m. Australian Standard, Eastern Standard Time. It's just not past 7 o'clock Melbourne time. And to that end, that's enough from me. Everybody will turn off. And I'm going to introduce you to our speakers, Alice and Thea. Alice Carwardine works in mission and formation team at Edmund Rice Christian Brothers, Oceania province. She holds a master's degree in theology with a focus on eco-theology, reflecting her passion for the intersection between faith and care for our planet. In 2018, after successfully transitioning to a zero-waste lifestyle, Alice began sharing her knowledge and experience by running professional development workshops for schools. She's a trained teacher in physics and the study of religion. Previously, Alice was the national coordinator for Caritas Catholic Earth Care Program and was a member of the Laudato Si Action Committee working group collaborating with the dicastery for promoting human integral development to implement Pope Francis's Laudato Si. She's also a member of the Synod writing team for the Archdiocese of Brisbane. So I'm going to show Alice's wonderful, smiley, happy face. Just bear with me. Hopefully everybody can see Alice. Hi, Alice.
Hi, hello.
Now, Alice, I'm also going to bring in Thea Ormerod. Thea's a Catholic Christian, a semi-retired social worker, grandmother, and an advocate for action to curb global warming. She's been long involved in a range of social justice issues, mostly concerned with global poverty. For the last 15 years, she's been involved in the multi-faith climate action organisation, Australian Religious Response to Climate Change, pronounced ARC. She's currently ARC's president, and ARC is a founding partner of Green Faith International. Thank you so much, ladies, for your time and sharing your wisdom with us tonight. Very much looking forward to the discussion. So, Alice, it's over to you in the first instance.
I'm just going to acknowledge that I'm here on Yagara country, here in just south of Meanjin in Brisbane. And I'd like to pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and acknowledge that their land was never ceded. And just for a bit of context, I guess, Thea and I met around 2018 when just after I did my my zero waste transition. And I also did that year a program that ARC was running called Living the Change. And then Thea eventually asked me to work for her to do some contract work trying to bring that program a bit of love, but it sort of needed to close off, and so we saw an end to that. But it's really because of Thea that I was able to move into a lot of work in running professional development and formation in this area. So I have a lot to thank for Thea and her wisdom, and I'm constantly learning from her and all of those sorts of things. So as David mentioned, and as you have signed up, the theme for this webinar is around Laudate Deum, and also celebrating the 10 years of Laudato Si, for which Laudate Deum was basically a sequel to. And if you notice the history, so Laudato Si in 2015 came out in response to the Paris Agreement, which happened at COP 15, I think. And then Laudate Deum came out in response to, in preparation for COP28. And in the most recent COP29, there was a really passionate lecture, basically, from a man by the name of Al Gore, he was an old vice president of the US, who's a very passionate climate advocate. He's started the Climate Reality Project. And I'm not going to share with you the whole 1 hour video of him, but just as a way of reflection and to get us into the space, I thought I'd share just a little bit of his passion, which I think is something that Thea and I have both experienced and shared in different times. So just bear with me for a second while I get that up for us.
Do not be discouraged by any temporary political setbacks. We have to do this. We have no choice. We can do this. We have the technologies, the models, the policies. We know what works. The only thing that is any doubt in some people's minds is political will. But you know, every morally based movement in human history has gone through periods of despair when the advocates felt, oh my gosh, will we ever be able to do this? At a comparable moment in the civil rights movement, Martin Luther King Jr. in my country spoke up and he said, keep going. If you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But keep going forward. And if you doubt for one moment that we have the political will necessary, remember, political will is itself a renewable resource. Thank you very much.
So I thought the message of political will is a renewable resource was, yeah, it's a good quote, isn't it? It's really, really powerful. So just in reflection and on that, I would like to send a prayer for our politicians around the world, that they do have the will and the courage and the strength to do what is right and not what is self-serving and easy. Amen. Yeah. So in preparation for this evening, I sent Thea some preparation questions, and as someone who has presented many, many times, she's like, right, I'm going to make a PowerPoint and I'm going to have all these visuals. So she's gone ahead and done this. But the questions that I just sort of sent her around, you know, what has changed in the last 10 years since the release of Laudato Si and now Laudate Deum? What have been some of the highlights in her work, which she's going to share about? And also, what do we mean by these COPs, and what happens at these COPs, and how can we be involved moving into the future? What's our focus and our hope going to be? So I'm actually now going to hand straight to Thea. And as things are happening, if you would like to put questions into the chat, I will compile them. And then towards the end, I will help with the moderating of that. So yeah, go Thea.
Okay, thank you. I will be talking in the first half of this session about a lot of things that ARC has been doing, the kinds of actions that people can take if they're taking Laudato Si and Laudate Deum seriously, and then moving on to the COP negotiations, because both those documents were written in relation to COP negotiations. And so what's that all about, and what kind of input can we have? But I do want to first bounce off Laudate Deum, because there's so much, I mean, it's in the title of this webinar, and there's so much in it that's relevant to the work of ARC. Okay, so Laudate Deum is focused primarily on the climate crisis, where Laudato Si was much more broad-ranging and about broader environmental issues, forests, oceans, water, because he was starting to feel very much like we were not dealing with the climate emergency. And it's quite urgent. The world in which we live is collapsing and maybe at breaking point. And it was quite practical too. This is about avoiding fossil fuels. It's actually relatively straightforward. You know, we need to stop burning fossil fuels. And still the world, 80% of the world's energy comes from fossil fuels, and that has to change. We mitigate climate change by reducing the use of fossil fuels. He criticized the technocratic paradigm. Basically, technology is giving too few people too much power. And it is basically a social justice message. The effects of climate change are borne by the most vulnerable people. So it is an ethical and it's a religious issue. It relates right back to the Gospels. And he was quite radical, and much more radical than most people at COP negotiations, and certainly the governments. That COP negotiations have been ineffective because decisions need to be binding with consequences for non-compliance. This is one thing at COP negotiations that they will resist, that it has to, it's always seen that whatever is asked has to be voluntary. And that's partly why it keeps failing and not doing its job. And again, this is about intergenerational justice, intergenerational responsibility. What kind of legacy are we leaving our kids? Alice asked me, what impact has Laudato Si and Laudate Deum had? Well, in the global climate movement, it's been a great encouragement. I remember when it first came out, and I came into an office which was shared by a lot of players in the climate movement, different organizations, NGOs, and on practically every desk there was, and these were not religious people, these were atheists and agnostics, they had a copy of Laudato Si. There was such excitement through the climate movement, and I think it's still been a great encouragement. It's broadened, I think, a lot of ordinary Catholics' understanding of what social justice is about. And it's legitimated Catholic environmental action, where people in parishes might have had to ask their parish priest, you know, can we, you know, run this environmental workshop, and he might have been scratching his head. Now the door is open. You know, there so many doors are open for us when we, you know, we can challenge priests that are resistant by waving a copy of Laudato Si or Laudate Deum. And it's given rise, of course, to the global Catholic climate movement, and which has become the Laudato Si movement. And from there, action plans have started to be formed. It's all been very slow, 10 years since Laudato Si came out. And we're really only, you know, dioceses are still only forming their action plans. But anyway, it happens. It's a very big church and it moves very slowly. ARC's actions, the big things that we've been proud about are helping and build momentum for faith-based organisations to divest from fossil fuels and engage in positive impact investment instead. So investing in solutions rather than the problem of what's causing climate change. And most Catholic religious orders in Australia have divested from fossil fuels. 3 or so Catholic dioceses, a number of, all Anglican dioceses in the UK, all Catholic dioceses in the Philippines. And it was quite a movement there, and we try and keep that ticking over. So this is our divestment week of action. And we're multi-faith, as you can see. We've tried to encourage different faiths to take this on, and it's something that, you know, it's not specifically political. It's a kind of a lifestyle change that is very effective. You know, moving your life savings and your money that's in your bank away from investing in what the problem is and instead investing in solutions is a very important form of action. And we have challenged various banks who are investing in this case, it was Whitehaven Coal. So some of the work we do is civil disobedience. And this was a pray-in in the National Australia Bank. We've had pray-ins in a number of banks and outside Parliament House and inside Parliament House. And the police get quite discombobulated by our pray-ins. Sometimes they don't know whether to sit and pray with us or to arrest us. I know. We also just have encouraged communities to make changes, you know, put on solar panels, to recycle, to include in the liturgy prayers about the environment, to consider energy efficiency measures, all that. Yeah, recycling, electronics. So, and we have kits in the Buddhist tradition, Hindu, Christian, and Jewish traditions. Climate action kits, they're on our website. And this is what Alice was involved in, the lifestyle changes, what was it called again? Living the change. So trying to encourage people to make at least one change in their lifestyle at a time, flying less, using public transport, cutting energy use, encouraging people to take a step and makes it easier to take another step. We have held a number of Faiths for Climate Justice actions in relation to and in conjunction with the Green Faith International. So we believe in not just lifestyle changes and doing things at home. They're all very good. I won't knock them. But public-facing actions which challenge the government, challenge policy, and are associated with, you know, encouraging people to write, to demonstrate to the community that people of faith care about these issues. So this one was in 2021 when we had a Sounding the Alarm, Faiths for Climate Justice. We've had a number of big events at cathedrals. So cathedral communities taking part in actions in public faith and getting quite a lot of media, because we want to shine our light to the world and not just keep it under a bushel. And sometimes our religious leaders come out pretty strongly. In this case, it was church leader hits out at fossil fuel lunacy. at CBD Cathedral Rally. That's in your city, Brisbane, Alice. Peter Catt, he's fantastic. Joe Caddy, Bishop Joe Caddy up here in Cairns. And we create open letters that are signed by a whole lot of religious leaders. And this one was created last September. And I'm wondering, can I go over to you, David, to play that video that I gave you?
You certainly can.
And I'll stop sharing.
From faith leaders to the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition.
It's time for people of faith to speak with one voice for Australia, for our children, and for the earth.
We are in a climate crisis. In Australia and globally, people are dying. People are losing their homes and their livelihoods because of floods, fires, and droughts.
We'll need to make some big changes if we're going to get through this together.
Last year, at the international climate negotiations, the world agreed to transition away from fossil fuels. Australia did the right thing and signed up.
What we urgently need from our political leaders is a clear plan to make that happen, starting now.
The most important part of the plan is to let the country know when you will get the job done. We need a date. We need to let the people know when you will stop exporting coal and gas.
To the Prime Minister, your government has made a good start, but there's a long way to go. Here is some powerful work we believe you could do before the election.
Scientists tell us that we cannot afford any more coal or gas projects anywhere. So we're calling on you to stop allowing new gas fields, especially those looking beyond 2050. The situation is far too urgent for that. Gas is not the answer.
We must stop giving public money to the coal and gas industries. They've got enough of their own. There's a cost of living crisis. Why not give those billions of dollars to your new plan for creating clean energy, creating good jobs, and leaving no one behind?
Please update our environment laws, putting climate change at the heart. Right now, this is an urgent priority.
We are asking you to show care and respect for Torres Strait Islander peoples and all our Pacific neighbours by signing the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty. That will really show the government is serious about phasing out fossil fuel.
And let's give our fair share of finance in much larger amounts to low-income countries to help them transition to renewables and deal with climate-related disasters.
To the Leader of the Opposition, nuclear is not the answer.
Nuclear would cause dangerous delays when we're in an urgent crisis. A serious rollout would take decades, slowing down renewables and leading us to use a lot more gas in the meantime. And that would mean billions of tons of more climate pollution.
More people suffering in heat waves, floods and drought. People in low-lying islands like the Pacific, my island home, or other parts of the world are at risk of their homes being swallowed up by the rising sea.
We need to reduce climate pollution right now, not later. Solar and wind can be built at scale right now and will cost much less. Both major parties need to be in the game.
To both leaders, we know this is going to take courage and real leadership, but we believe the country will go with you if you go in the right direction.
That's why across Australia, people of all faiths and none
are coming together to say it's time.
Because some things are much, much bigger than politics.
Thanks, David. Actually, there's somebody, Thea, who has to leave the meeting. Okay, that's good. Alice, we were going to have a bit of a
yes
check with a temperature check, if you like, to see how concerned everyone is who is on this call. I'm curious to know who we're speaking with.
Absolutely.
Do you want to just run that little
Yeah.
question?
Yeah, so many of you would be familiar, I imagine, with Menti or something similar. So what you can do right now, what we would like you to do right now is grab your phone and you should be able to scan the QR code that is on the screen. If you're on an iPad, it may not come up, so I apologize, that may not work for you. But you should be able to scan it. I'm just double checking that it's going to work here. And it should send you to a question. Oh, there you go. And then all of your dots, each of you is a dot that will
Wow.
come up, and you should be able to
Everyone's.
yeah,
Oh, goodness.
submit.
Very concerned.
Maybe it was our talk at the beginning and our video of Al Gore and and the video
maybe
just
I
then.
should
as
have
well.
asked right at the start, and I didn't think of it.
That's okay. Don't stress. It's all good.
Still,
Yeah.
I'm
Wow.
pretty sure people will have been concerned before they started watching this.
Yeah. This might be a good time to pause as well while everyone is still putting in their answers. You do have to press submit as well, by the way. So click your answer and then press submit, and it will come up. One of the questions that has come through is, what is a COP?
What is a COP?
Yeah. So do you want to answer that real quick so that we can? The next bit will be a lot easier to understand for people.
It's a conference of parties. The parties are all countries, so 195 countries are represented usually at the COPs, and there's a conference of party every year since 1992, and and they're put on by the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change.
Yeah, or if you see the UNFCCC, that's that acronym.
UNFCCC.
Yeah.
Okay,
Wow.
great. Okay, so whoa, a lot of people are very concerned. Okay.
Maybe we'll stop sharing that.
Yeah, I think we'll stop. Yeah, thanks a lot, everyone. I was very curious. Now, I'll continue this. I'll continue the presentation. Yeah, so again, this is our public facing actions. This is from a Sikh Gurdwara. We sometimes have Muslim. We also try to act as much as we can in solidarity with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, protecting their country. This is in the Stop Adani campaign, and we acted in solidarity with the Yes voice referendum, even though it wasn't directly relating to climate action, but we have, we believe that we need to be good allies to people who are Aboriginal. So supporting positive change at the Conference of Parties talks. Obviously, this is huge. We're talking about international conferences where thousands of people attend. And, what on earth can we possibly do to make a difference? And obviously, alone, we can do very little, but together we can do a lot. There's just been a decision made by Murray Watt about the Northwest Shelf extension, the Woodside development up in Northwest WA. And you're going to see a lot of protest and a very loud, I mean, a lot of people objecting to that over the next few days and weeks. So enough people power and things do change. For a long time, it looks like nothing's going to happen until eventually, that is the only thing that really can happen, and that is change. And organisations like ARC, Laudato Si movement, Caritas, Oxfam, do ask people to sign petitions, join protest actions, make donations. Believe it or not, your donations do make a difference. As a NGO, we really appreciate. And prayer, writing to your local member in the way that's advised by the Laudato Si movement, ARC or Caritas. So Australia offers proper targets in line with 1.5 degrees. At the moment, our target is not. Pays our fair share of climate finance, supports the fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty. All of these things we're not doing yet. So this is Faith for Climate Justice in relation to the COP in 2022. We're also trying to be allies with people in the Pacific. Okay, so here you can see how well, actually how very poorly we do in relation to other countries. This is just a selection of countries and their policies, their government policies to bring down emissions. So where's Australia? Australia? Very weak, along with Russia. And not as good as China or Colombia. So we have a big job to do. We've been dragged a lot back by the coalition, being so tardy for the last 10 years. But the ALP is not proving to be all that strong either. So the red countries are the ones where there are serious problems with both our policy and the rate at which we're reducing emissions. This is just our nationally determined contribution. That is our target. And you can see the this little faint line towards the top is showing the direction that our emissions are headed, which is down, which is good, but very slowly. And when our 43% on 2005 levels by 2030 is not aligned with 1.5 degrees Celsius around the world. It is in no way adequate. And we're not in any way adequate in relation to how much climate finance we give to. Our climate finance is money that rich countries give to the developing world to both, shift to renewable energy, become more energy efficient, and to adapt to climate change, because they're the ones who are most impacted. And Australia has a pretty poor record on that. What needs advocacy at this time? Now, this is even aside from the climate negotiations. The big challenge, the AOP has been reasonably ambitious in bringing down our emissions in terms of domestic energy use, but by far more emissions come from our exports of coal and gas overseas than what we produce in Australia. So we kind of export climate change. We're at home trying to reduce our carbon footprint, and overseas we're trying to, we're proffering the very things that we're trying not to use back in Australia. It's highly inconsistent. We need to give Aboriginal people a meaningful say over their lands. A lot of these mines are in places that Aboriginal people are opposing them. They don't have proper native title rights. Native title in Australia is as weak as dishwater, and all they seem to be able to do is delay developments. That needs to change. It's a continuation of colonization. We need stronger environmental laws. The ALP has talked about improving the EPBC Act. The safeguard mechanism, again, is as weak as dishwater. There are more loopholes than actual measures to properly offset carbon emissions. We need to pay our fair share of climate finance. At the moment, we're not even supporting the loss and damage fund. We've got no money for that at all. Yes. And some of the problem is how much influence fossil fuel companies have over our politics. So ARC has been beginning to do work with the Australian Democracy Network to try and get the polluters out of our politics. So COP31, we're most of the climate movement is holding its breath at the moment. I mean, apart from jumping up and down about the Northwest Shelf and Browse and all the rest, if Australia does succeed in getting COP31 and to co-host that with a Pacific nation, it's being decided probably in about 2-3 weeks' time. If we get it where all systems go, it's going to be a huge challenge to the Australian climate movement, and it's going to be a great opportunity to put pressure on the government to clean up its act. I mean, if we're going to host climate negotiations, then the fact that we're not aligned with 1.5 and that we're exporting fossil fuels is going to come under pretty intense scrutiny. So we're seeing it as an opportunity. Already the Pacific leaders in the Pacific have said, you know, how can you possibly go ahead with the Northwest Shelf development and be credible as hosts of COP31. So, and there's going to be a lot of that. We're going to be, as best we can, collaborating with First Nations people here and in the Pacific, and with the Australian Pacifica diaspora and other faith-based organisations to amplify their calls for action. It's Indigenous people of the world who really understand our need to look after the earth. They have the sort of antidote to our addiction to extractivism.
Can I come in here with just a quick question, Thea, just for those who may not have context about how the COPs work. But a few years ago, there was a whole section of the conference itself, like a whole pavilion that was created just for religious. That's right, isn't it? Like
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I think it was only the last COP.
Yeah, the last COP there, and I imagine they will be looking to do that again this year. And if it's here in Australia, like there will be something there, and I imagine ARC as well as you know, I know colleagues of mine at ex-colleagues, I should say, of mine at Caritas, and even some current ones that work in the Evan Rice community, like they will be there. So that's just for some
that's a lovely space. It's intended as a space where delegates can come and debrief and to mellow out and just be human beings. And apparently the COP negotiations are so intense that it's really good to have some humanizing presence at the negotiations to support the people. And I think hopefully ground them in, you know, what it's really about. And it's,
and there's some really beautiful videos of just people gathering in that space and singing, and it's really quite wonderful. So it's very exciting. Anyway, keep going.
So this is civil society around the world. We had this letter at the last climate negotiations saying, look, the fundamental thing, no new coal mines and oil and gas fields if the world is to limit global warming to 1.5. The problem with the negotiations, they're all about reducing emissions, reducing use of coal, oil and gas. Doesn't say anything about the mining and export of coal, oil and gas. You can do that as much as you like. The only trouble is that creates an enormous, like there's a lot being produced, and so it's such a ambiguity. You know, you can't have one without the other, and that's why a parallel push has come in play, the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty, which is all about the production and export of fossil fuels. I mean, if countries keep getting an influx of cheap coal, oil and gas, what's the motivation to move to renewables? Aside from that's not the only thing that's going on. I mean, what's happening also is good technological developments. That means that there's been this massive take up of EVs and investment in there's more money now being invested in renewable energy than in coal. It's coal, oil, and gas. But there's it's kind of this big competition at the moment between, the forces of good and the forces of evil, really. And this is why we want to prioritize First Nations people and the people of the Pacific, because they're on the front lines of climate change. Like, this is Vanuatu. You can imagine what sea level rise means to people in Vanuatu. And the people of the Pacific have been among the strongest voices for action, on climate change. So the key issues at the next COP and the COP31 that comes after this one in Brazil is because of the influence of lobbyists, fossil fuel lobbyists at climate negotiations. There's a big movement to keep polluters out of COP. We need sufficient climate finance in the form of grants, not loans. We need a proper loss and damage fund and a fast, full, fair and feminist transition away from fossil fuels. We love that one. And a fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty. Just as an example, the number of fossil fuel lobbyists at these COP negotiations has increased, year on year. So there are thousands, at COP28, there were 2,456. At COP29, there weren't quite as many. It was 1,700 or so. But they're part of all these conversations and talking people out of making good decisions. And at these climate negotiations, there are civil society who are there also. They're not part of the negotiations. They're always on the sidelines. But there are times when the climate negotiations are held in countries that don't have autocratic governments, we can be a really strong, influential presence. There can be hundreds of thousands of people on the street, as in Glasgow. At Sharm el-Sheikh, that wasn't so possible. Dubai, Baku, because they were like autocratic governments. But we're hoping that if we have the COP here, then it's in a democracy and there's going to be some good tolerance of civil society on the streets. So, and we'll make sure that's happening. So that's it. If anyone has any questions.
They've been flying in, Thea.
Sorry.
No, it's not a bad thing. It's a great thing. Some of them are probably going to be more easily answered than others. There was a question regarding the Catholic Super Fund, and I know there's a link on the ARC website that has that Jamie and Sue would have been able to. There is information on the ARC website about those. So for that person who is asking about that, there's a whole divestment section where you can go and begin.
I think as just as a thumbnail sketch, unfortunately, the Catholic super funds are they're in name only Catholic, so they need a bit of challenging too.
I'll just clarify that because not everybody sees the question.
Okay.
Alice, the question was regarding, or the comment was, I recently learned that Catholic Super has fossil fuels investments.
Yeah.
Can you confirm or not? Essentially, I understand that they still do.
They do.
There is a desire, a stated aim to reduce those over time, but I don't believe there's a timeline that has been given. And whether or not that's just PR or a complete commitment, I don't know. But
I wish they may have. I'm not sure, because one of the things that's happened with the two Catholic super funds is that they've joined with bigger funds. People may not realize that often funds will have a more environmentally sustainable option that you can go with. So,
and I think Catholic Super has one that you can choose, but you have to choose it.
You have to choose it. It's usually an opt-in rather than a default. Right. So good to write to your super fund and put pressure on them, because that's when they change.
Yeah,
they will.
Yeah.
A feminist transition, shall I? I mean, a feminist. That is because it's women who tend to suffer more because of climate change, and who pay the price. It's also women who are strongest in the climate movement. I think the climate movement is about 70 or 80% women. So yeah, that's
Yeah. There was also a question around with the video that you made for the government, with the faith leaders. Was there any government response from that? Did you get any feedback?
No. Sorry, no. I wish we did. And not to our open letter either, which was signed by cardinals. We had 100 very senior faith leaders, and we pushed them. No, it's pretty slack, really.
Yeah, it's
but it's also crazy. A witness to the rest of society. I mean, I think ARC has, like Laudato Si did in its own right, I think ARC is seen as a beacon of hope for the climate movement. And when a lot of people are worried about climate change, and when they see a banner on the church that says protect creation, no more fossil fuels, or a lot of people take heart with that. I think it's an important witness to the kind of values that Jesus was on about, and all the faiths are really fundamentally committed to.
Yeah, absolutely. There's another question here about just on the data that you were sharing about the different polluting nations. Are the 3 greatest polluting nations concerned and acting on climate change? How much would our measures deter the disasters we are facing? That's a big question.
So if the big polluting countries were to properly take action on climate change, how much would we? Okay. I'm afraid that a fair bit of climate change is locked in, and we're really not even feeling the full effects of the pollution we're creating now. There's a kind of a lag effect in the global system. But I mean, what choice have we have? We have a choice of trying to slow down pollution and therefore slow down how bad it gets, or it is unfortunately going to continue to get worse. Even if we stopped emitting
everything today,
it would still get worse for a while. But I mean, best case scenario is that we start cleaning up our act, and that we slow it down, and then perhaps with enough tree planting and soil carbon sequestration and enough measures at not carbon capture and storage, that's pretty much pie in the sky. A number of what choice? I mean, we only have one planet, and the fear is, I don't want to make people feel more anxious, but the fear is that we set up cycles, self-perpetuating, self-sustaining. So, the world gets warmer, so therefore it gets warmer, and the oceans warm, and the currents warm, and the atmosphere warms, which also feedback loops start to get, so we want to avoid those kind of tipping points.
I think on the data though, because China I think is listed as moderately in terms of their policy and stuff like that. But I know in that case, China has done a huge amount in solar, I think, in the last few years, which has been really, really great to see as one of the larger things. So they're kind of I guess a success story in some ways, which is good, but it's still, as you say, kind of not enough. Although, as someone mentioned in a comment, they said, is the Chinese data fabricated? And I was like, well, maybe,
Oh, I see.
maybe.
No, they are, they're working hard at it. I mean, one of the reasons that China is such a big emitter is that they are great centers of manufacturing. And of course, when you manufacture stuff, they manufacture stuff for the rest of the world. So they're kind of emitting those greenhouse gases that are involved in that manufacture as well. So it's a little unfair to point the finger at China. Plus, they are working pretty hard. In fact, they're exceeding their targets, and
which
they're
is good to see.
The biggest producer of solar panels in the world. They're becoming the biggest producer of EV cars. I mean, they're really headlong into the transition economically.
There's been a few more questions come in about the connection to the feminists and women and women's movement and all of those sorts of things. And we probably don't quite have the time to really go into that argument in full. And there was just a question about the reference, where's all that information coming from? But I think anyone that has really, engaged in this space, like I remember when I was working at Caritas and hearing the stories of those who were not only being impacted by climate change, but who were part of the programs that were trying to, fight rising sea levels and all of those sorts of things. It was always women who were, either impacted or who were working to mitigate and all of those sorts of things. So I think the research is out there. It's just sometimes it's difficult to find. But yeah, any other thoughts on that? As the last
I don't know. Those statistics will be around. Try the World Health Organization. Caritas has written about it. So,
the UN has stuff as well.
Google it.
Google it. Yeah, it's all there.
It's all there.
Yeah. And what about for us? There's been a few comments about it being a bit overwhelming as a last thing. How do we go away with hope, Thea? How do we end this on a hopeful note?
Okay. Yes. Well, I guess as speaking as a Christian, my hope is in Jesus Christ and the resurrection. And I believe ultimately that everything is in God's hands. And I could not have any equanimity about any of this did I not have a very deep, powerful faith in the saving power of Jesus. Also, I mean, I think my friends in the climate movement just see hope, and I see hope too as an active thing. It's not a feeling, or if you really looked at the information, that you couldn't sort of rely on feeling okay with it. You've got to somehow. Hope is kind of akin to a determination or a willingness to keep going and just believing. Often things have changed historically when people have believed in working for things that appeared to be impossible until they became possible. So I just, I think that's a bit inarticulate, but I hope that more or less answers it.
Yeah, thank you. No, that's a good way to finish, I think. And
we've still got 10 minutes.
Yeah, but I think David has some wrapping up things that he's going to share. So
yeah. Okay.
Thank you
for it, David.
Thank you very much, ladies. And there's somebody asked in the questions just a moment ago, because there are still lots of difficult questions coming through. Somebody said, what's the percentage of women versus men on the webinar? And I think
what's the stats, David?
Yeah, well, not too many males. There are some, but overwhelmingly, those who have registered female. That could be an element of the fact that there's a lot more teachers and women involved in Catholic education and also at parish level.
Absolutely.
The men do the working bee around the church, but the women are the ones who often help father do the work. So I think it's pretty representative of that. One thing I'm sort of struck with the discussion was that, Laudato Si really, highlighted Pope Francis's desire for climate action and the interconnectedness and the importance of the climate crisis. And Laudate Deum is really, an ongoing call for that. And some people might say, what's tonight's webinar, striving to do? And I get the sense is that normal people, normal Christians, or those who are not necessarily faith-based, are actually trying to do something. And that's really the key. Will it work? Will the one thing that you try work? Don't know, but you don't know until you know. So, and I think Francis, I read somewhere in the last sort of 6 to 12 months, and I read extensively, so I can't quote on this, but Francis was asked about, was he disappointed about, the work over the 10 years or the 9 years or whatever it was to Laudato Si, and his first point was, no, this is a long game, but unfortunately the long game is not long. It's not 100 years. It's not Vatican II, where 60 years ago and we're still just scratching the surface. But he was, as always, he was ever optimistic and ever hopeful that change could be made, will be made. And ARC, for instance, is just one organisation that's trying to do amazing things, and we congratulate everybody in ARC, Thea, for the work that you're doing. So that's it, I guess. So thank you so much for sharing your work and your thoughts. I'm sorry we can't answer everybody's questions, but we...
Oh, can I encourage people, they can send their questions to me.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'll have a look at the questions that were placed in the chat tomorrow. And we send the video out next week. But if there's some questions that we can get Alice and Thea to answer, we'll put those in a document that can go with the video, and I'll also put the links to Al's presentation and the faith leaders presentation that we showed as well. So, because I think people, will want to share that with their class or with their colleagues at school or within the parish or their friends, because we have a diverse group tonight. So with that, a very big thank you to Alice and Thea, and also a very big thank you to all of you who've taken your time out of your day to join us tonight. I hope you are a little bit inspired. I hope you can use some of the thoughts to have a dialogue within your parish or your school communities, within your friendship groups as well. Because one of the things that we need to do is have more dialogue, meaningful discussion at ground level, in my view, because that will then build up. So with that, I'm going to formally stop the webinar and wish you all a blessed night. And
don't forget to buy the guide on Laudate Deum.
Oh
from
no,
Garrett.
we won't. We will advertise, Alice.
That one, yeah, the one that Thea's holding up.
There's always a book that we advertise. So we will do that. But thank you everybody for participating. Thanks for your comments, your questions, and we wish you all the best.
Thanks, David. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Thanks.